And we are live. What's good, Josh and man, DL Saint? welcome. Good morning. It is, man, it's Wednesday. It's hump day. It's early, y'all. It is early. Um, Y'all know I'm more of a nocturnal person. I've been having sleeping and stuff like that. But I was able to sleep last night. Went to bed at a normal time, woke up, and no alarms, just up. So I'm definitely feeling better. Um, welcome to Downrange Podcast, guys. We're doing the Downrange. This yeah, like this story. I was gonna do this yesterday. I was gonna do this last night, to be honest with you. I was gonna do it last night, but I was tired. Who knew? I actually got tired like a human and was able to go to bed and sleep. And boy, was I out cold. Had a good night's sleep. Woke up. I haven't had a sleep like that in a long time, so that's really good. My doctor's gonna be happy. I know I'm happy. Um, and school starts soon, and school starts on the 10th, man. So get my body ready for that. You know what I mean? My daughter will be home pretty soon, and then we'll be back into the whole school thing, back to school shopping and all that stuff, and getting her ready. But I don't know, man. I'm feeling better. I'm a little healthier now. Blood pressure is under control. All that good stuff. All that good stuff. So, yesterday, after we completed our live, I mean, as soon as we were done with our live, I was here, sitting here, just kind of doing some maintenance stuff. You know, what I mean, some editing, kind of not editing, but just housekeeping stuff with the podcast. And I noticed that George Gammon was on live, so I kind of checked that out, and he was talking about a bank issue, another regional bank, another California regional bank, actually two banks. And there's something going on, right? Kind of looking at that a little bit. And I'm like, huh. Um, looked at a couple of news articles. There was another YouTuber, a fairly big YouTuber on the financial side that was talking about this last night. More doom and gloom. Uh, you know, I was I'm in a position where I don't really understand it, but I like to put things through the old think trap. I mean, think trap. I like to put things through the old think tank, right? That's what I like to do.
Think tank, Arch. Nothing gets past the old think tank. Nothing.
So, I'm like, I listened to so I'm watching this YouTuber thing, right? And then I went back and I looked at George Gammon's live. He did a quick live. And again, I read some articles. I'm like, you know what? We should talk about this. Like, we should talk about this. I was gonna make it a short, like I'll just do a deal short, but it was a few articles, and I'm like, you know what? I'll just do a quick live instead. So we're not gonna be here for a couple hours or anything like that. Um, but we are going to spend a little time on this, guys. Just again, food for thought to give everybody something to think about. Um, I know it's early, so again, this is me doing me, like trying to get myself back into the normal routine of things. So just to give you guys something to think about, like just check out this information. Go do your own research. Like go look up your own articles, cross-reference your own stuff because this is telling. This is telling. We have, some sort of issue with another regional bank. Today, the Federal Reserve is anticipating, or no, people are anticipating the Federal Reserve to raise interest rates a quarter of a percent. That's what people are thinking is going to happen. It's probably going to happen. So we got a New York Times reporting on that. The New York Times was also reporting on these two banks, what's going on with this merger. Um, so let's check this out, man. This is George Gammon, Rebel Capitalist. If you guys haven't done so, you might want to go over and not Mike. You should go over and subscribe and hit his notification bell because this brother really breaks it down. In a way that makes sense to me. Now, here's a dude who's self-made, successful guy, self-made millionaire. He's not one of those people that was born into it. He did it the old-fashioned way, man. He worked his way into it. But I appreciate his takes on stuff, man. So let's check this out.
Hello, fellow Rebel Capitalists. Hope you're well. So, breaking news: another bank stock is crashing. I mean, crash. I'm talking about down 27% just in the last few minutes. So I don't even know if this is in the mainstream media yet. So let's go right over to Twitter or X or whatever the stupid name is now and check this out. So here we go. Banc of California in advanced talks to buy PacWest. Now, the initial thought here is, well, usually when a business acquires another business, it's at a higher price, and that makes the stock go up. But now this is making the stock of PacWest plummet. Now, says it's down 10%, but this is an hour ago. And we see another tweet from this is from an hour ago as well. And this is showing that it's down over 27%. But then this is saying that the stock has been halted multiple times today. That's usually not a good sign. And I would say it's double not a good sign when your bank is being acquired, but instead of your share price going up, it's going down. I think, and I'm by no means an expert in mergers and acquisitions or any of that, so take this with a grain of salt, but just me kind of trying to use some common sense. It seems as though the market is predicting the reason they were taken over is because they were failing. And therefore, Banc of California came in and purchased them, but they did not purchase them at a market cap or the equivalent of wherever the shares were trading today. They most likely purchased them at a much, much lower price. And again, I want to be very, very clear. I know nothing about mergers and acquisitions. I don't know how that works. I've never studied it. I've never talked about it on a whiteboard. I'm just simply kind of a macro guy, and this is more micro stuff as far as just, what moves the stock price up or down. But I think it.
So we can see right, as we get into it, like, Brother Gammon, Brother George is out there. He's just like, look, he sees this thing. The stock price caught his eye, and it was Twitter or X. I guess he's calling it X now. Elon Musk is. People are commenting on it, right? So he made the comment about he's not really seeing anything in mainstream media. And again, this was yesterday. I haven't seen anything other than a couple articles we're going to read. So mainstream media has picked it up, but it's not a big story. And I haven't, I would imagine CNBC or Fox Business, one of those type channels, have talked about this. I would imagine that's the case. If they didn't talk about it yesterday, they will certainly be talking about it today. But I don't think they're going to put a lot of emphasis on it. And I think the reason behind that is they don't want another run. If people hear that, then they get nervous and they go take their little bit of money out the bank, even though your money up to $250,000 is backed by the government. People are losing faith. So, that could be one of those things where the media works hand in hand with the government and the powers that be, whoever they are, to keep the sheeple from stampeding away. So, a lot of people say, "Oh, we have a free press, and we have all this freedom in America." Do we? Do we? Because you have people working behind the scenes to do whatever it is they're doing for whatever reason they do it. So here it is, another bank, another regional bank, another California regional bank that has quietly collapsed, right? People be talking about quiet quitting and all that. This is a quiet collapse. They didn't get bailed out by the feds, not yet, but they were bought by another bank, another regional bank. This bank ain't, it's not like it's a major bank. So who knows? But, let's continue. Who knows how this is going to turn out, but let's continue.
It's important, and it just goes to show us that this banking crisis might not be over. I think it's ironic that we just had a live stream on the impact or the validity of the yield curve and here you go. We see more potential bank failures or banks being bailed out at the very last minute. Now, I will give you some good news, though. I think the good news is that they were bailed out by another bank. Because if you go back to March of 2023 here, this year, those banks weren't bailed out by another bank. So that would tell me that, quote unquote, money is, or liquidity is a little bit better now than it was in March of 2023. I'm not saying on net balance, it's all rainbows and unicorns by any stretch, but at least that's a little bit of good news, because if this PacWest Bank was that bad, and if there was just no liquidity, if things were super, super tight as far as money, Banc of California would not have stepped in and basically taken control of their balance sheet. They would not have wanted those assets. They would have not have wanted those liabilities either.
You know, and I'm with Brother George. I don't know anything about this stuff, y'all. I don't. This is just me trying to figure it out. I would agree with him. It's a good sign that another bank came in to buy this bank. But we're going to read a couple articles, and it this may be a strategy on behalf of both banks. Like, both banks may be in trouble, and this was a way that they could kind of shore up their back end. And what I mean by that is these two banks merge and they become bigger. So when they do crash, and they maybe, you know, this is just a theory. When they do crash, they're big enough to get that federal backstop money, that federal bailout, to get help from the feds. If they were to go down now individually, maybe they would be too small, and the feds will let them go. You know, go the way of Silvergate or Silicon Valley or First Republic. So, and that's the thing. And I got that from reading a couple articles. And again, there's some people out there talking about it. Brother Mandrell, what's good? Good morning, bro. What's good with you, fam? How you good? Good to see you. Thanks for stopping by. So, man, this is this is crazy. Let's continue.
So again, my commonsensical take here from someone who doesn't know anything about this is the reason the stock price has gone down so much here is because Banc of California paid a lot less for PacWest because they were on the verge of collapse. That would be my main takeaway. But let's go through here and read some of these other tweets from people that likely know a lot more about the kind of micro stuff here when it comes to what's moving a stock up or down when it's in the process of merging with another company.
So we have that. Now, I'm not, again, this is outside of my wheelhouse. I don't know how this stuff works. All I know is this is pretty major news, and there's not a blitz on mainstream media talking about this. It's not a big, breaking news. They're not cutting in. Again, I haven't been watching NBC like that. I haven't been watching Fox Business like that. I am today. I'm kind of jumping on today. The market hasn't opened yet. I think it just opened. Yeah, the market just opened. So I'm jumping in there, and I'm pretty sure they're going to cover it. They're going to talk about it, but I'm wondering how much time they're going to give to this. So Reuters has an article. I wanted to jump in on this article real quick, guys, and I'm going to pull it up, which I thought, again, this is me just trying to figure it out. I don't know anything about this. This is way outside of my wheelhouse, but we're going to do our best to kind of figure it out and, walk ourselves through it. And here it is right here. Banc of California and PacWest to merge, raise $400 million in equity. And this was 12 hours ago. This was updated 12 hours ago. The story was released yesterday, July 25th, 8:12 p.m. Pacific Western Bank, there you go. That's who they are. Combined bank to have total loans of $25.3 billion. Warburg, Pincus, Centerbridge buy new shares, and that's private equity. Those are two private equity firms, I guess hedge funds or something like that. So the money came from the private sector. It doesn't look like the government was involved. But, you know, I mean, the government has to be involved when you're talking about mergers and stuff like that. I do know that much. Like the government has to be involved at a certain point when you're talking about mergers. They got to approve stuff. So PacWest shares soared 34%, Banc of California up 9%. And as we were watching just a moment ago, those numbers were fluctuating. Right, they were fluctuating. So let's get into it. July 25th, Reuters, Banc of California, and PacWest Bancorp will merge in an all-stock deal to create a bank with $36 billion in assets. The company said on Tuesday, coming together just months after the regional bank sector was marred in crisis. So they say this is an all-stock deal. This merger is an all-stock deal. I don't know what that means. I don't know what effect that could have on this potential deal. All stock, you know what I mean? So, you know, you got all kinds of stock, preferred stock and common stock and all that. Again, outside my wheelhouse, I know very, very little about all this. But the fact that the reporter put that in there makes me think that might mean something. So this was an all stock deal. To help fund the combination, the lenders have also agreed to sell $400 million of new shares to private equity firms. And I was Warburg, Pincus, and Centerbridge Partners. So that's the private equity who's coming in to help. They're trying to shore this thing up. The combined bank will have $25.3 billion in total loans in more than 70 branches in California. It will be based in Los Angeles and led by Banc of California CEO Jeff Wolf. So, again, it's California-based bank. Both these banks are in California. They've just combined their forces. They've combined their banks together. Now, this merger between these two entities, be like $25.3 billion in total loans, right? So it makes the bank bigger. PacWest was among the leaders that were rocked by the collapse of the three regional banks earlier this year, prompting the worst industry turmoil since 2008 financial crisis. Right. And I remember even on this platform, when that was going on, I remember talking about PacWest. We were talking about it like, what's going to happen with PacWest? Is that the next one to fail? How long will it take before it fails? I remember talking about PacWest. I don't remember talking about Banc of California at all. But PacWest, I remember. And there were a couple other regional banks in the Southeast and in the Northeast. I know Fifth Third was one of the banks that people were watching. I can't think of the other ones. There were some names out there of banks that people were watching. I want to say Mercantile or something like that. There were some banks out there because people were looking at their books and people were really worried, especially going into this pending commercial real estate thing. You know, like everyone knows the commercial real estate is suffering, and there's a bunch of unrealized losses that are about to hit. They're about to hit, and that's going to continue for over a 3 to 5 year period as these loans come in and interest rates go up. You know, the people who are tied into these big skyscrapers, these big old real estate deals. They had the deals at low percentage rates, man, 2-3% or whatever. But now the interest rates are way up. So people know that there's a lot of unrealized losses out there. Rebel capitalist George Gammon talks about this all the time. And now all the talking heads on TV are talking about it. So we know it's coming. And PacWest was one of the banks that back then, a couple months ago, people thought was going to fail. But it made it through, and now they're merged with another bank. So that's crazy. Let's see. Both the banks are in the same geographies, are focused on commercial assets. And so this could be seen as a marriage of convenience. So you got some talking heads saying that. Shares of PacWest surged 34% after the market closed, while Banc of California jumped 9%. PacWest stockholders will receive 0.656 Banc of California shares for each. PacWest shares they currently own. So that's just, they're talking about the breakdown of who gets what. Meanwhile, the two private equity firms will be issued new Banc of California stock worth $400 million at a price of $12.30 per share. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen said in May that some mergers among mid-sized U.S. banks could be necessary after a series of bank failures. And we know that because, again, this was when they had that regional thing popping off. You know, the Fed secretary and which is Jerome Powell, it was pressure for him not to raise the rate. So there was that Fed pause. And then you had, Janet Yellen is out here and she's saying, yeah, some of these regional banks might have to come together. So this is something that's not unexpected to them anyway. PacWest has been signaling deals to shed some assets and strengthen its balance sheet. Last month, it said it will sell a $3.54 billion lender finance portfolio to asset manager areas management. While the turbulence at regional banks has abated, the lenders have stymied deposit outflows. There remains concerns that some lenders will still be struggling. So this is just basically talking about how the banks are trying to deal with this issue. Like, it's an issue, and they're trying to deal with it. They're doing what they can. They're doing what they can. They're making deals where they can. They're moving these losses off their books as best they can. They're doing whatever they can to stay afloat. And it says the turbulence at the regional banks has abated. Yeah, but is it, that was just a little respite. You know what I mean? Like, just a little bit, like, but lenders, people with their money are still looking like, hey man, let's move this money out of here. Let's get our money out of these smaller banks, get them into the too big to fail banks. People are moving their money. And that's where they're talking about stymied deposit outflows. And people are still concerned that some lenders may be struggling. So these banks are indeed struggling. They say this is a rare deal. The deal marks a rare transaction in the market after several months of government negotiated sales of failed banks. Bank mergers have also been held up for months or scrapped, awaiting regulatory approval. So everyone's talking about this merger. They're talking about who's involved in the merger, how much money is involved in all this, but this hasn't been approved by the feds. Remember, this sort of stuff, you just can't do it on your own. You got to get approval. So in other words, this deal might not happen. This thing could roll up. It could fall apart. I remember there was a bank, and it might have been PacWest. There was a bank that had a deal with the Canadians, and then the deal got like Bank of Canada or something like that, and the deal got scrapped by the feds. Some regulatory entity somewhere scrapped it. I don't know if it was here in America or if it was there in Canada, but the deal got killed. So it is indeed possible that this might not happen. Securing regulatory clearance for bank mergers on a timely basis has been a key concern of industry figures in recent times. However, two sources familiar with the transaction said the announcement showed confidence among the parties of achieving necessary sign-off. See, this isn't even done. This isn't even done. So they're making news. Maybe this is why the mainstream media isn't really pushing this thing as big news, because it might fail. And again, if they bring this stuff up and people start looking at it and the deal fails, you're going to see at least one regional bank close, another regional bank collapse, maybe two. Because, Banc of California, they say that, they're having trouble with their balance sheet too. Will say regulators are aware of the merger process from a very early phase. So they've been aware from a very early phase. So maybe this is one of those things where Janet Yellen was saying, hey, y'all need to do this. Y'all need to go ahead and merger. I don't know if you guys have ever seen that movie Too Big to Fail, but in that movie, when this was talking about the housing crisis, in that movie, Geithner was sitting in his office and he was trying to merge banks. Like, he had all these banks and he had all these firms, like Citibank and Lehman and Goldman Sachs and Bank of America. And he was trying to figure out deals. He was trying to figure out how to make them merge or how to get them to talk to one another. And maybe something like that is going on. where the Fed is quietly, not the Fed, but the Treasury Secretary is quietly behind the scenes, and her people are telling these bankers, yeah, you might want to go talk to that person. And yeah, y'all might want to go talk to that person. I'm not saying do it, but I'm just saying our regulators probably won't have a problem with that. You know, hint, hint, maybe that's going on. And if it is, that's scary too. And that's something that people should know. And it says the merger is expected to be completed by late 2023 or early 2024. So they're hoping Q4 or Q1 to have this thing done. What if it doesn't? PacWest had a market capitalization of $1.24 billion as of Monday, almost 63% higher than that of Banc of California, according to data that's out there. So PacWest was bigger than Banc of California, but Banc of California is buying out PacWest. You see what I mean? That I don't understand that part. Again, this isn't my world. I don't know, but that sounds fishy to me. How is the big dog being bought out by the little dog? I don't get that. PacWest had a market capitalization of $1.24 billion as of Monday, almost 63% higher than the bank that's buying them out, which is Banc of California. PacWest had total assets of $44 billion at the end of the month of March, while Banc of California had assets of $10 billion, according to separate company filings. So Banc of California is clearly the smaller entity and is buying out a larger entity, and is doing it at a time of turmoil in the regional banking system. Why? Why are they doing that? Why? I mean, and how is this going to get past the regulators? I mean, again, I don't know anything about this. I don't know what the requirements are or whatever, but how you got this little entity coming in to save or buy out the bigger entity? That doesn't, I don't know if that makes sense. That doesn't make sense to me, but again, maybe that happens all the time in banking. A smaller company comes in and buys out a larger company, but why? Why take on that risk? That would imagine like you're taking on a lot of risk by doing this. Over the past 18 months, the competitive environment in California has changed dramatically. And that's what Wolf is saying. And we've seen many other banks either completely exit or significantly pull back from California. As a result, there's a sizable opportunity. So they're saying this, you know, okay, there's a sizable opportunity for the small bank to take on this big bank, but why take on that risk? He said that in the first part of his statement. He said the competitive environment in California has changed, and a lot of banks didn't make it. Right? We've seen many other banks either completely exit, which means fail. Right? That's what I'm thinking. Exit. Where's a bank going to exit to? They completely exit or significantly pull back from California. So you're talking about banks coming out of California. So I guess they're saying this because other banks are coming out of California or pulling back from doing business in California, there's an opportunity for this small bank to merge with this bigger bank to rescue them, and maybe they can take advantage of, you know, market share. Man, this don't sound right to me. This doesn't sound right to me. And then it kind of goes into the background of Wolf. It says a spokesman for the Office of the Controller of the Currency, which regulates the Banc of California, declined to comment. The Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation, which oversees PacWest, did not respond to a request for comment. So the regulators aren't talking. They're not talking. Apparently, they knew this stuff was coming. Reporters are going to come. The media's going to come asking questions, and they're not talking. The recent banking crisis has underscored predictions for a round of industry consolidation, an analyst said, but uncertainty over changing capital rules has deterred transactions so far. So there's been, maybe there's more oversight, maybe there's more regulation. They just make this statement about changing capital rules. So again, will this deal even go through? Can this thing get past the regulators? I wonder. Man, accounting rules present further hurdles because they require banks to mark their security portfolios to current market values in an acquisition and take losses up front. So that's another thing that banks were doing. Banks were not showing, they were not marking their value to the market. So they know they have big, unrealized losses coming. So I know I was hearing that term all the time, unrealized losses. So the banks know they got a huge bite coming and they would just kick that can down the road. We don't have to tell you about that. So we don't have to show that loss yet. So we're healthy. We're healthy today, but next week we're gonna have to show you that loss. So I guess they said some of the rules that have changed is now you got to show those losses up front. You got to mark to market right now. And again, that's what they're gonna have to do to get this merger through. And they're calling it a hurdle. It says under the merger agreement, Banc of California's balance sheet will be marked, while Pacific West will avoid such marks as it's the accounting acquirer. So unless I'm reading this wrong, the way I'm understanding this statement is Banc of California's balance sheet is healthy. And they're gonna mark their balance sheet, their assets to the current market, which is gonna be favorable to them. It's gonna look good. But Pacific West, PacWest, who is the bank that's in trouble, doesn't have to do that. They don't have to mark to market. They don't have to show how bad off they are. If I'm reading this correctly, now this is why the big bank is being bought out by the small bank, because the small bank's books are in balance and the bigger banks isn't. And both of these are small regional banks. So, man, this sounds like smoke and mirrors right here, the old okey doke. The U.S. currently has more than 4,700 banks. Government data showed it is likely that only half may survive in a decade's time. These banks are closing, man. They got stupid. The global financial crisis of 2008 also contracted the size of the banking sector from 2007 through 2013. The number of independent commercial banks operating in the U.S. shrank by 14%, or 800 institutions, government data showed. So, hey, y'all. Like I said, man, I don't understand right, what's going on. I don't understand this. This is not my wheelhouse. I'm a retired air traffic controller. But this doesn't sound right. I don't know if this is going to go through. I don't know if this is going to make it through the regulatory process. They might shut this merger down. And if they shut this merger down, what happens to PacWest? Right. And this is the kind of stuff, like, this is what's great about YouTube and Twitter, or X, or whatever it's called. People can get the word out. Imagine if there were no YouTube, or imagine if there were no X, Twitter X. Imagine if that didn't exist. All you would have with, small independent news media sources, which would have been hard to get. We will be completely reliant upon print media and TV media, like cable news, and they can tell us anything they want or not tell us anything they don't want to tell us. So we will be in the dark. At least now we can see this stuff. It's like, if you got time to look for it, most Americans are working really hard. They don't have the time to look for this stuff. I do, because I woke up early today. Right? I woke up early today. So here's an article from the New York Times. And it's talking about this. I'll go big. PacWest Bank, trashed by deposit crisis, will be taken over. Now, this was Banc of California is set to absorb PacWest, a larger lender that has seen its depositors flee this year. Right. So again, they're talking about PacWest being a bigger bank of the two, and the smaller bank is taking over. This was yesterday, July 25th. PacWest Banks, which never fully recovered from its hammering during this year's banking crisis, will be absorbed by a smaller lender, Banc of California, the banks announced on Tuesday. The development was a humbling end for the 24-year-old PacWest, a once fast-growing Los Angeles bank whose clients fled amid turmoil for regional lenders this year. And we all know about that, right? We all know about that. So the PacWest name will be retired. Oh, really? And the combined banks will operate under the Banc of California name. So, wow, according to this, PacWest failed. Wow, they're being bought out by the smaller bank. I thought they were going to at least keep the name. Wow. And the combined banks will operate under the Banc of California name. Jared Wolf, the chief executive of Banc of California, will run the new entity. Wow. In addition to how weakened PacWest has become, the combined bank will have just $30.5 billion in assets, considerably less than the $34 billion that PacWest had at the start of the year. Man, PacWest just ran themselves into the ground, y'all. That's wow. The bank said that the combined company will have the strength and market position to support the banking needs of small and medium-sized businesses in California. The private equity firm Centerbridge and Warburg Pincus will invest $400 million in the deal, the banks said. So again, this is pretty much the same stuff we read in the other article. Is just this part about PacWest Bank having its name retired. That mean that the bank failed, y'all. The bank's got to sit. They have been bought out by another bank. PacWest no longer exists if this deal goes through. So if this deal doesn't go through, the regulators are going to have to step in. So PacWest will be gone anyway. Regional banks have been under pressure since March when Silicon Valley banks collapsed. But the spotlight on this and put the spotlight on mid-sized lenders. That spotlight is still on them. Many such banks say it has become increasingly difficult for them to compete with the country's largest institutions as depositors prize the relative stability that big banks can offer. Right. You got too big to fail. The big banks are tied into the government. That's too big to fail. Monopoly, y'all. They're going to continue to absorb these smaller banks. Just a matter of time before Banc of California get absorbed by one of the big 4 or 5. One of those banks is going to take them. PacWest has been one of the most imperiled regional banks. It has been reportedly shrinking this year in part by selling off loans to competitors. Its stocks was recently trading around $10 a share, 1/3 of its peak in August. The transaction, which is subject to approval by the regulators, so it hadn't been approved yet, turns the usual mergers and acquisitions playbook on its head. Typically, it's the larger company that buys the smaller one. Yeah, that's what I thought. Like typically, the large company eats up the small one, not the small one eating up the large one. Banc of California had 27 full-service branches, while PacWest had double that. The new entity could be planning to close some of those locations. Tuesday's announcements promised more than 70 branches in California. PacWest investors apparently disappointed by the development. By the development, its shares cratered 27% in afternoon trading on Tuesday after the Wall Street Journal reported the deal was imminent. Banc of California shares rose 11%. Yeah, small banks ain't supposed to eat up the big banks in a merger. Again, why would Banc of California do this? It doesn't make sense to take that risk. I mean, why do it? Why do it? That's crazy. And this has to be approved still. This hasn't been approved by the regulators, which means this deal may not go through, which means if this deal doesn't go through, PacWest is done. Done. It's going to be just like Silicon Valley. The regulators are going to have to shut the bank down, come in there, take over their deposits. That's when you're going to have Janet Yellen saying it doesn't matter how much is in there. We're going to guarantee all of the money in the banks, even if it's over 250,000. All that's going to happen again. And the Treasury keeps saying that they're going to back all these banks, but the government doesn't have the money. The money isn't there. The government doesn't have enough money to back this bank to cover those accounts that are over $250,000. They don't. We talked about that already. It's not, I don't have to be an expert to tell you this is what, go look at the numbers. They don't have the money. I mean, if you look at the numbers, the FDIC can't, they don't have enough money to cover the $250,000 per deposit right now. They don't, let alone anything over that. Now, I don't think anyone foresees all the banks going under at the same time, but it wouldn't take all of them, just a few. Just a few. So for people who, people who thought that the banking crisis was over, was it? All right. Was it? Is it? It's crazy. So a lot, and then, so Jerome Powell and the Federal Reserve, we've had this Fed pause, right? They stopped raising interest rates a couple months back. They paused. Well, it's time to do something. So today they're going to announce if they're going to continue the pause, or are they going to raise rates, or are they going to lower rates? What are they going to do? All right, what are they going to do? And this is another New York Times article. Here's what to watch at the Fed's July meeting. The Federal Reserve is poised to raise interest rates after pausing in June. What comes next is crucial, but don't expect clear commitments. So, and again, they never do that. I mean, Jerome Powell and the Federal Reserve was saying they wanted to raise interest rates for a very, very long time. They started doing it. We were real aggressive with it. They paused. George Gammon was talking about this on a Rebel Capitalist last month. If you go back, I think, to the 1950s and even before then, and it was like out of the last 10 times the Federal Reserve paused while raising interest rates, the pause was followed by a drop in interest rates. So if you go back, only 1 in 10 times has there been a Fed pause and then it goes up. Normally there's a Fed pause and then it goes down, right? So you go back and look at the chart, right? It's like, okay, Fed's raising interest rates, and then they pause, they stop raising interest rates for a month. Normally they begin to lower interest rates. So George Gammon was talking about that. He went back and he looked at it. He was like, you look at the last 10 times this has happened, only once was there a pause and then the interest rates continued to rise. So this would be the second time in 12 that it's gone up. So 2 times out of 12, there was a pause and then it went up. So this was a rare moment. So it looks like the Fed is going to continue to raise interest rates. This is today. This article came out today, July 26th at 5 a.m. The Federal Reserve is widely expected to raise interest rates at its meeting on Wednesday, and economists will be watching for hints of what officials expect next and how they think the central bank's fight against rapid inflation is going. So, the Federal Reserve only has one trick, guys. One trick to fight inflation, and that is to use interest rates. Either you raise interest rates or you lower interest rates. And we've coming out of a cycle where since Alan Greenspan, they've been dropping interest rates, lowering interest rates until it got down pretty much to 1% or 0. So now Jerome Powell is stuck in his job and he's like, bro, he has to do something. They know that inflation was about to run away. The only thing they could do was raise interest rates, and that's what they've been doing. So there was a pause at the last meeting, and now it looks like they're about to get back to raising interest rates, which, I mean, think about it. They should do it. If this is the only trick you have, and you've already begun to let America feel the pain by raising interest rates, you just got to raise the interest rates as high as you possibly can. I'm no finance guy, but I'm like, look, you've already started it. You know what I mean? We're already hurting. So you might as well get that interest rate up as high as you possibly can, because you know it's going to be some problems at some point down the road. So you need to reload your gun, so to speak. Get those interest rates up as high as you can. So when you do begin to lower interest rates, you got some room to work with. At least that's my take on it. Fed officials will release their decision at 2 p.m., after which Jerome H. Powell, the Fed chair, will hold a news conference. Policymakers are expected to raise rates to a range of 5.25 to 5.5. So from 5.25 to 5.5. They want to raise that up. This will be their 11th move since they began to lift borrowing costs in March of 2022. So officials ratcheted rates higher rapidly last year, but have been slowing their campaign for months, even skipping an adjustment in June after 10 consecutive moves. So there you go. Back in June, they did June is when they made the Fed pause. That was last month. Wow, seems like it was longer than that. Wow, time is going slow. But last month, they initiated a pause. Like, we're not going to raise interest rates. So, George Gammon was talking about this, and a lot of other people were talking about it. Like, normally when they do a pause, they're going to lower interest rates. Will he do it? Will they lower interest rates? And it looks like they're not going. It looks like they're going to go up again. The central question is now, when will they stop? Central bankers are unlikely to make a clear commitment this week. They have projected one additional rate move this year to a 5.5 to a 5.75% range, but officials will not yet need to commit to when or even whether the move is happening. Fed officials will have plenty of time and plenty of data to parse before they release their next rate decision and a fresh set of quarterly economic projections on September 20th. Still, investors and Fed watchers in general will be monitoring a few key developments on Wednesday. So nobody knows what's going on. What's good, Sister Candace? I see you. Good morning, sis. How you feeling? Good to see you. Yeah, I jumped on early today. I had a good night's sleep, woke up, no alarm clock, nothing, just woke up around 7. It's like, ooh, felt good. It's like, I'm gonna do a show. So they're gonna do this raise hike, and then they don't have to worry about it until September. So July. So they'll give all of August, and then September 20th. We'll see what they're gonna do next. It says the Fed statement may not change much. Many economists expect the Fed to leave their post-meeting statement, which they use to announce their interest rate stance, mostly unchanged at this meeting. The Fed's statement said last month that in determining the extent of additional policy firming that may be appropriate, officials will consider how much they had already raised rates, how quickly that was working to slow the economy, and how both economic data and the financial system were holding up. So, I mean, that makes sense. You make an adjustment, you do your thing, and then you wait. You see what it does. Both job numbers and inflation numbers have softened somewhat since the Fed June meeting, prompting investors and some economists to mark down the chances of another rate increase this year. But Fed officials will probably avoid signaling that they are backing away from the possibility of raising interest rates further. Again, you've already started the pain. Get the interest rates up as high as you possibly can. I mean, once this thing started back in 2022, that had to be the plan. Like, we're going to get this up as high as we can, period. They don't want the market to get ahead of themselves and think it's over. Our forecast is July and done, but if inflation reaccelerates, they'll keep going. So yeah, no one knows what they're going to do. They say this news conference will be all about tone. If the statement is plain and vanilla as expected, it will put all eyes on Mr. Powell's news conference. The Fed chair has so far been careful to send two big signals. Rates may need to rise further, and they will almost certainly stay high for some time. So I hope people are paying attention. The banks weren't paying attention last time. He said he was going to raise the rates. He said he was going to be aggressive with it, and the banks still they doubled and tripled down on having low rates for a long time, and that's why the banks are in trouble. Regional banks, they seem to be getting the brunt of this thing sooner, but the big banks were doing the same thing. So it was just a matter of time. And this whole commercial real estate thing, that's really going to be a problem. Although policy is restrictive, it may not be restrictive enough, and it has not been restrictive for long enough. So this is what Powell, that's what Powell said in the June meeting, and they paused it. I don't know why they just didn't raise it last June. The Fed might be feeling a little bit better about inflation after the consumer price index report for June came in softer than expected. With an encouraging slowdown in a few closely watched service categories, the overall inflation number stood at 3%, down from 9.1% at its peak last summer. Fed officials aim for a 2% inflation using a separate but related inflation measure called the Personal Consumption Expenditures Price Index, which is set for release on Friday. These charts that they use, these indexes and stuff like that, I don't understand them. I mean, some say that there's historically been there's one chart that they looked at to determine inflation, and they stopped looking at that chart and looking at other charts. And that tells me it's like, okay, you're looking at all these options, give us the best of all the worst options. We want to report the best numbers possible. So give me that chart. That's what it sounds like to me. And I could be wrong. But why don't we just use the chart we always use? Why are we using these other charts? Yes. You know what I mean? That's suspect. But that good news is just 1 month of data. Wall Street economists forecast that inflation will continue to slow down, but wild cards abound. Right? Gas prices popped at the pump this week after a shutdown at the ExxonMobil refinery, and the peak of hurricane season still lies ahead. Right? We know that's going on. The waters around Florida and in the Gulf, like the Atlantic side and on the Gulf side, are the warmest it's been in a long, long time. The water, like the average temperature of the water is like 90 something degrees. One thing I know about hurricanes is they feed on warm water. So the next hurricane that hits Florida is going to be nasty. If the temperature of the water doesn't go down, the water stays hot, and we get we just started hurricane season. So hurricanes start coming our way, and there's 2 tropical storms right now that they're looking at. So, and again, this is just the beginning of hurricane season. It could be ugly, and that will definitely affect the economy. So yeah, you have the ExxonMobil refinery, which has caused prices to go up at the pump. They're talking about hurricane season, which we don't know how it's going to look. Market-based wheat prices has climbed this month after Russia pulled out of an agreement guaranteeing safe passage for ships carrying grain across the Black Sea, which could eventually trickle through to lift consumer costs. So there's things out there. There's stuff going on. This stuff going on is definitely going to affect what's going on here in America. Those may ultimately prove to be blips, but they underline that shocks could still push prices up. Nor are big surprises the only thing to worry about. Price increases could simply prove stubborn, right? And that's just how that works, man. They're trying to get inflation down to under 2%. They're at 3%. We were at 9.1%. Raising interest rates, bringing the pain seems to be working. The economy is slowing down. Interest rates are dropping, but jobs aren't shedding. People aren't losing jobs. So the job reports are still up high. There's some people out there that said that the Fed really wants to see unemployment rise because that will help them with their inflation goals and stuff like that. I don't know about that. I don't know. I'm not saying it's not happening. I don't know. This isn't my wheelhouse. A lot of the slowdown in inflation so far has come from healing supply chains and return to normal in categories heavily affected by the pandemic. The economy is slowing, which could lower price increases broadly over time, but job gains remain faster. See, we were just talking about that. Faster than before the pandemic, and consumer spending has momentum under the surface. So yeah, they need jobs. They need people to lose jobs, which is crazy. But in order for them to reach their goals of lowering inflation and slowing down the economy, they need people to lose jobs. That's a sad fact. And they need consumer spending to slow down. I don't, you know what I mean? This is just, hey guys, I'm just putting the stuff out there. We got brother Scam Likely in the building. What's good, man? Good morning. Good to see you, brother. This is why Mr. Powell has been striking a cautious tone to date. So all that stuff we were just talking about, this is why Powell's like, I'm still worried about this because any of those factors could spark up and it could cause inflation to shoot up. And all this work they've doing, all this pain they've caused by raising the interest rates, which they need to, it still might not be enough to get inflation under control. They still might have to go even harder with inflation hikes. I mean, correction, with interest rate hikes. And he says, we've all seen inflation be over and over again shown to be more persistent and stronger than we expected. So he's anticipating that. I mean, you got to give it to him. He is committed to getting inflation down. And they're talking about incoming data is key moving forward. The big question for the Fed officials is whether they have done enough to feel confident that the economy will slow and inflation will return fully to their 2% goal. They will be looking towards a number of data releases over the coming weeks for the answer. Policymakers will get a fresh reading on Friday of a wage measure. They watch closely the employment cost index. That quarterly measure is not jerked around by shifts in the composition of the labor market the way the monthly wage data can be, making it a more reliable snapshot of pay trends. And it has yet to show a steady slowdown. So again, they look for all this stuff. You know, they want to get inflation down, and they're trying to make sure they don't overdo it, but they want to make sure they do it enough. You know, this is one of those things. It's like, you know, they got to get it right. But I mean, people are feeling pain regardless. Right? Officials usually cheer on quick pay gains, but they believe that with wages rising as quickly as they have been recently, it would be hard to fully cool inflation. Companies that are paying more are likely to try to charge more to protect their profit margins. Policymakers will also closely watch two incoming employment reports for July and August, and two more inflation reports slated for the release before their gathering. So everyone's trying to figure this out. Everyone's looking at it. It's like, don't expect the Fed to declare victory. One thing you won't hear on Wednesday, the Fed declaring victory in its quest to slow inflation. Economists think that the central bank's odds of cooling the economy without causing a recession have gone up, but it's still far too early to say for sure. I don't see how we don't have a recession. I mean, I just don't see it, but this is what they're fighting to avoid. If inflation threatens to stay too high, the Fed may still err on the side of overdoing it to make sure that it does not become more permanent, some have warned, right? So you got a Princeton economist and former vice chair of the Fed has argued that soft landings, or at least soft-ish landings, in which recessions are mild, are more common than often believed. I mean, you got people who say the exact opposite. So it's just people crossing their fingers and hoping for the best. Recent developments, Mr. Blinders said, are consistent with the view that a soft landing is possible. These people are like, it's possible. Well, anything's possible, homie. I'm happy as a clam, he said, but he said such an outcome is far from certain. He puts the probability of a recession around 40%, and he worries the Fed could stay too aggressive for too long, continuing to raise rates this fall despite the slowdown in inflation. I'm starting to get a little nervous about the Fed's overshoot, the classic impatience, he said. I mean, dude, it's hard. It's hard. Right? It's hard. I mean, what they're trying to do is really difficult. I get it. I understand that part. Most of this stuff is over my head, but I understand that part. I understand inflation will be very, very bad. And I understand that they're trying really hard over there at the Fed to stave off inflation. And everybody's talking about these soft landings, these hard landings, or no landing at all, right? And that's reference to inflation. Like, how bad will the inflation be? Soft landing means it's not going to be that bad. You'll barely notice it. A hard landing is it'll be terrible 1970s, 1980s style inflation. And the no landing is there won't be any inflation now. Things just keep going the way it's going. There's definitely going to be some pushback. There's definitely going to be some friction. Just come on now. It's going to be an inflation. It's going to be an inflation. And there are people out there who say the jobs reports have been skewed, which is part of the problem. When like when you look at like who's really working, there are numbers out there that say that, you know, the unemployment numbers are very, very high, and that the powers to be have been hiding those numbers, the true numbers, and they've been using favorable numbers. So now that we need unemployment to come down and we're using this favorable method, what they need are the real numbers. The Fed wants the real numbers to show that unemployment is really high. But instead, we got these favorable numbers to say unemployment is really low. So they're going to be forced to continue to raise interest rates, thinking they got to fight to get the inflation down, so we won't have this bad, recession. So they've worked themselves into a corner. And like if you put it through the think tank, it's like, there's no way to avoid a hard landing. What someone's going to come out and say, oh, look, we found the real numbers, and unemployment is really high, as opposed to these other numbers we've been using forever that says the unemployment is record low. Politicians don't want to have bad news. They don't want to have high unemployment on their watch, especially the president. So they're going to go with these other numbers. So they can say, look, we've got all these jobs. We're building more jobs. Man, we're going to see what happens. Sister Kansas, the cost of borrowing money is high as fuck. Yes, it is. And student loan payments are set to restart after a 3-year pause. Recession seems likely. Agreed. I know I was looking at some loans not that long ago, but, this was about 2 months ago. And we were looking at close. It was almost 8%, like 7.6, 7.8%. It's almost 8%. I don't know where it is now, but the Fed is definitely going to go. Matter of fact, the Fed's supposed to go up 1/4 of 1% today. That's supposed to be the announcement. 1/4 of 1%, 0.25% interest hike. That's the anticipated news. So now that same loan will definitely be over 80% with this interest rate hike. So, and then you have like just average credit or bad credit. Yeah, you're probably going to be double digit. Keep your eyes on your credit card stuff, y'all. Keep your eyes on your credit card. Try to pay those off every month. Try not to use them, because those rates are going to be incredible. Right? It's going to be definitely, 20, 23, 24%, 25%. Keep your eyes on those credit cards. Credit cards are great so long as you got the cash to pay for it. Don't carry a balance. If try not to carry a balance. So, and then I had student loans. I think the average student loan in America is somewhere between $400 and $500. As we know, the average American can't handle an unexpected expense. So if you're barely holding on with your rent, average rent in America is around $2,000. The average car note is about $1,000. Right? So people aren't making as much money right now. If you're barely holding on with just those two right there, $2,000 for your apartment, $1,000 for your car, that's $3,000. And now you got to start paying your student loans again. And that could be like another $500. That's huge. That's huge, because most people are barely holding on. They're already working side hustles. They got their Uber going on, or they're doing editing for YouTubers and whatever. They're getting money from wherever they can get money, DoorDash and all this other stuff. They're out there starting businesses, doing all kind of stuff, man. They're trying to get this money. They're doing all this work. They're working at like 90%, 95% of their capacity, and they're barely paying their bills. And you about to add another $500 bill on top of that. It's a wrap. Gas prices are going up even more. We can anticipate that. Gas prices are going to go up. We just wait for a storm to hit. All these bad storms and stuff. It's just gas prices are going up. Gas prices goes up. That means everything goes up. Food prices go up, right? You still got to pay babysitters. School's about to be, summer's about to be over. So you might have to start paying babysitters again, or tutors, or whatever you got to pay. Have to get instruments and stuff, like this stuff you got to get, clothes, school supplies. 'Tis the season. I'm telling you, man, this is going to be rough. But again, Jerome Powell has already started the pain. just go ahead and raise the interest rate. Keep raising the interest rates as high as you can, because it's gonna get bad. And when it does, at least there'll be some room for them to start lowering the rates, because they only have one weapon at the Fed, and that is interest rates. All they can do is raise them or lower them. That's all they got. So that is crazy. Sister Candace, I think the thought of a middle class is a fallacy. You're never really comfortable. That's facts. That's facts. We don't have, either you have it or you don't. It's to have yachts and have nots now. It's not, that's what it is. If you ain't got a boat, you know what party you in, you know what group you in. So people with money getting it. There are deals out there. People with money are just buying stuff left and right. They're getting it. People without money, I mean, it's just struggling. If you can get to that side where you can actually go out and, buy something, buy yourself a property, buy yourself some land, buy yourself a business. If you can do that, you're going to do good on the other side of this. But most people can't do that. So that's the latest, y'all. I just wanted to start the day off with that. Sorry for the bad news. Here's what it is. But it's best that you know and you can prepare than not knowing and getting side, getting, T-boned by this information, man. Just and go out there and read your own articles, check out some more stuff. I'm going to do that. I'm going to be reading, trying to see what the BBC is talking about, be looking at Al Jazeera. I'm looking at other YouTubers. Now I'm going to see what other people are saying and see what's going on, but this seems to be the case. We got a small bank just bought up a big bank in California, and everyone's had their fingers crossed hoping the merger goes through. It still might not go through. There's a lot going on, guys. So that's it. That's it for now. I might be back later tonight. I might check out Brother Mandrell on Black Man Unfiltered Network tonight. Brother Mandrell's show and Mandrell and Shushu, Unapologetic with Mandrell and Shushu. Believe they're on tonight. I think it's 7 or 8 o'clock Central, which is 9 o'clock Eastern. Don't quote me on that, but I was just looking at their show. I had their thumbnail pulled up, and go check out his show. Go check out his thumbnail. I think you guys will like it. I think you guys will like it. I saw it. I was like, I might have to check this one out. It's kind of racy. So check that out. Shout out to Black Man Unfiltered. Please continue to support his platform over there, because he has a network, the Black Man Unfiltered Network. He has all these different shows and all these different personalities come on over there. Every day they have a different show. Man, that brother is putting in the work. Salute to him. Thanks for rocking out with me. I'm done for now. Like I said, I might be back later tonight. Definitely be back tomorrow. We're going to talk some politics, some more, because, every time y'all see this Downrange Podcast, we're talking politics. And then there's a show I want to do about the Passport Bros. I'll probably do that on I Really Want to Know. There's some Passport Bros in the Dominican Republic getting themselves in trouble. And I want to talk to you guys about what it is that they did. And it just shows how most Americans should never leave America. We just put it that way. And there it is. Brother Mandrell, thank you, brother. 8:30 Central Standard Time. Unapologetic with Mandrell and Shushu. 8:30 tonight Central Standard Time. So that'll be 9:30 Eastern Time. Please check that out. Let's support Mandrell over there on Black Man Unfiltered Network. His sister Shushu will be on this platform tomorrow. We're gonna do a show. We're gonna we're gonna do like a freestyle show. We're just gonna kind of talk about stuff. It's gonna be fun. Shushu and I always have a good time. I know we're gonna be talking about religion. We're gonna be talking about faith and what it means, and we're gonna be talking about science. Like when faith meets science is gonna be one of the things we're gonna talk about. We're gonna be talking about relationships tomorrow. This is all tomorrow, guys, right here. I'll have that thumbnail out today. So I will see y'all soon. I'm DL Saint. This is the Downrange Podcast. It's time to go. I'm gonna holler at y'all later. Peace.
Darn, that's the end.